Good morning, everybody. David Atkins, target individual. Somebody requested that I talk about the Sex Kitten program. Um, so I'm just going to, I will start out talking about the origins and techniques of Monarch mind control, and it will talk about the Sex Kitten program further on in what I'm about to read. But I'm just going to start out with this deep information I found out about Monarch mind control, Monarch programming, MK Ultra anyway. Um, and then another person requested me do a video on biofilm because a lot of target individuals are seeing themselves covered in this and their homes covered in this. I'm researching it deep. The technology is, I mean, there's a lot to it, so it might take me a couple of days, but at your request, the person who requested it, I will be doing one on biofilm. Any other topics y'all would like me to research and look up, I'd be glad to do it. So anyway, let me get started this. First, I'm going to do a simple verse, Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything else will be added. Okay, now let me start this. Origin and techniques of Monarch mind control. Monarch programming is a method of mind control used by numerous organizations for covert purposes. It's a continuation of Project MK Ultra, a mind control program developed by the CIA and tested on the military and civilians. The methods are astonishingly sadistic. Its entire purpose to traumatize the victim, and the expected results are horrifying. The creation of a mind control slave who can be triggered at any time for any action required by the handler. While mass media ignores this issue, over 2 million Americans have gone through the horrors of this program. This article looks at the origins of Monarch program and some of its methods and symbolisms. And the Sex Kitten program is discussed in here. The article contains disturbing elements. Okay, Monarch program is a mind control technique comprising of elements of satanic ritual abuse, multiple personality disorder. It utilizes a combination of psychology, neuroscience, and occult rituals to create within the slaves an alter persona that can be triggered and programmed by the handlers. Monarch slaves are used by several organizations connected with the world elite in fields such as the military, sex slavery, and the entertainment industry. This article will look at the origins of Monarch program and its techniques and its symbolisms. Origins. Throughout the course of history, several accounts have been recorded describing rituals and practices resembling mind control. One of the earliest writings gives reference to the use of occultism to manipulate the mind can be found in the Egyptian Book of Dead. It's a compilation of rituals heavily studied by today's secret societies, which describes the method of torture, intimidation to create trauma, the use of potions, drugs, and the casting a spell, hypnotism, ultimately resulting in total enslavement of the initiate. Other events described as black magic, sorcery, and demon possessions where the victim is animated by an outside force are also ancestors of the Monarch programming. It is, however, during the 20th century mind control became a science in the modern sense of terms, where thousands of subjects have been systematically observed, documented, and experimented on. One of the first methodological studies on traumatized-based mind control were conducted by Joseph Mengele, a physician working in the Nazi concentration camps. He initially gained notoriety for being one of the SS physicians who supervised the selection of rising prisoners, determining who was to be killed and who was to become a forced laborer. However, he's most known for performing grisly human experiments on camp inmates, including children, for which Mengele was called Angel of Death. Mengele was infamous for his sordid human experiments on concentration camp prisoners, especially on twins. A part of his work is that rarely mentioned. However, his research on mind control. Much of his research in this field was classified by the Allies and is still classified to this day. Dr. Green, Dr. Joseph Mengele, the most significant programmer, perhaps one could give him the title of Father of Monarch. The program was Joseph Mengele, an ex-Nazi concentration camp doctor. Thousands of Monarch mind control slaves in the U.S. had Dr. Green as their chief program. Dr. Mengele of Auschwitz notoriety was the principal development of the trauma-based Monarch project and the CIA's MK Ultra mind control programs. Mengele and approximately 5,000 other high-ranking Nazis were secretly moved into the United States and South America in the aftermath of World War II and the operation designated Paperclip. The Nazis continued to work in developing mind control rocketry technology on secret underground military bases. The only thing we were told about was the rocketry work with former Nazi stars, celebrities like Warner von Braun. The killers, torturers, mutilators of innocent human beings were kept discreetly out of sight, but busy in U.S. underground military facilities, which gradually became home to thousands upon thousands of kidnapped American children snatched off the streets, about 1 million per year. placed into iron bar cages stacked from floor to ceiling as part of the training. These children would be used to further refine and perfect Mingle's mind control technologies. Certain selected children, at least the ones who survived the training, would become future mind control slaves who could be used for thousands of different jobs ranging from sexual slavery to assassinations. A substantial portion of these children who were considerably expendable were intentionally slaughtered in front of the other children in order to traumatize the select trainee into total compliance and submission. Mingle's research served as the basis for the covert legal CIA human research program named MKUltra. Project MKUltra ran from the 1950s to at least 1960s, using Americans and Canadian citizens as a test subject. The published evidence indicates Project MKUltra involved use of many methodologies to manipulate individual mental states and alter brain functions, including surreptitious administration of drugs and other chemical sensory deprivation, isolation, and verbal and physical abuse. The most publicized experiments conducted by MKUltra involved the administration of LSD on unwitting subjects, including CIA employees, military personnel, doctors, other government agencies, prostitutes, mental ill patients, and members of the general public. However, the scope of MKUltra does not stop. Experiments involving violent electroshocks, physical and mental torture and abuse were used in a systematic manner on many subjects, including children. Although the admitted goals of the projects were to develop torture and interrogation methods used on country's enemies, some historians asserted that the project aimed to create Manchurian candidates programmed to perform various acts such as assassinations and other covert missions. MKUltra was brought to light by various commissions in the 1970s, including the Rockefeller Commission of 1975. Although it's claimed that the CIA stopped such experiments after these commissions, some whistleblowers have come forward stating the project simply went underground and Monarch programming has become the classified successor, MKUltra. The most incriminating statement to date made by government officials of the possible existence of Project Monarch was described by Anton Kitten, a former writer of publication New Federals. When former CIA Director Willip Colby was asked directly, "What about Monarch?" he replied angry and angry, "We stopped that between the 1960s and 1970s. Monarch programming. Although there's never been any official admittance of the existence of Monarch programming, prominent researchers documented the systematic use of trauma on subjects for mind control purposes. Some survivors, with the help of dedicated therapists, were able to deprogram themselves, then go on record and disclose horrifying details of their ordeals. Monarch slaves are mainly used by organizations to carry operations using patsies trained to perform specific tasks who do not question orders, who do not remember their actions, and then discover who automatically commit suicide. They are perfect scapegoats for high-profile assassinations. See Saran, the ideal candidates for prostitution, slavery, and private movie productions. They are also perfect puppet performers for the entertainment industry. What I can say now is I believe that ritual abuse program is widespread. It's systematic. It's very organized from highly esoteric information which is published nowhere, has not been on any book or talk show, that we have found it all around this country, at least one foreign country. People say, what's the purpose of it? My best guess is that the purpose of that is that they want an army of Manchurian candidates, tens of thousands of mental robots who will do prostitution, movies, smuggle narcotics, engage in international arms smuggling, all sorts of very lucrative things, and do their bidding, and eventually their megalomagnets at the top believe they'll create a satanic order. Monarch programmers cause intense trauma to subjects through use of electroshock, torture, abuse, mind games in order to force them to disassociate from reality, a natural response in some people when they are faced with unbearable pain. A subject's ability to dissociate is a major requirement and is apparently most readily found in children that come from families with multiple generations of abuse. Mental dissociation enables the handlers to create walled-off personas in the subject's psyche, which then can be programmed and triggered at will. Trauma-based mind control programming can be defined as systematic torture that blocks the victim's capacity for conscious processing through pain, terror, drugs, illusions, sensory deprivation, sensory overstimulation, oxygen deprivation, cold, heat, spinning, brain stimulation, often near death, and then employs suggestion or classical operant conditioning, consistent with well-established behavior modification principles to implant thoughts, directives, and perceptions in the unconscious mind, often in newly formed trauma-induced dissociated identities that force the victim to do, feel, think, or perceive things for the purpose of the programmer. The objective is for the victim to follow directives with no conscious awareness, including execution acts in clear violation of the victim's moral principles, spiritual convictions, and violation. Installation of mind control programming relies on the victim's capacity to dissociate, which permits the creation of new walled-off personalities to hold and hide programming. Already dissociative children are prime candidates for programming. Monarch mind control is covertly used by various groups, organizations, and purposes. Origins of the name. Monarch mind control is named after the monarch butterfly, an insect who began its life as a worm, representing undeveloped potential, and after a period of cocooning/programming, is reborn as the beautiful butterflies. The monarch slave / the monarch slave. Some characteristics specific to the monarch butterfly are also applicable to mind control. One of the primary reasons that the monarch mind control program was named Monarch Program was because of the monarch butterfly. The monarch butterfly learns where it was born, its roots, and passes the knowledge via genetics off to its offspring from generation to generation. This is one of the key animals that tip scientists off that knowledge can be passed genetically. The monarch program is based upon Nazi growth to create a master race part through its genetics. If knowledge can be passed genetically, which it is, then it is important that parents be found that can pass the correct knowledge on these victims selected for monarch mind control. When a person is undergoing trauma induced by electroshock, a feeling of lightheadedness is evidence, as of one floating like a butterfly. There's also symbolic representation pertaining to the transformation or metamorphosis of the beautiful insect from a caterpillar to cocoon, dormancy or inactive, to a butterfly, a new creation which will return to its point of origin. Such is the migratory pattern that makes the species unique. Method. The victim survivor is called a slave by the programmer handler, who in turn is perceived as master or god. About 75% are female, since they possess a higher tolerance for pain and tend to dissociate more easily than males. Monarch handlers seek the compartmentalization of their subject's psyche in multiple separate altered personas, using trauma to cause dissociation. The following is a partial list of these forms of torture. Abuse and torture, confinement in boxes and cages, restraint with ropes, chains, near drowning, extremes of heat and cold, including submersion in ice water and burning chemicals, skinning, only the top layers of skin are removed, spinning, blinding light, electroshock, forced ingestion of offensive body fluids, hung in painful positions or upside down, hunger and thirst, sleep deprivation, compression with weights and devices, sensory deprivation, drugs to create illusion, confusion, amnesia, often given by injection or intravenously, ingestion or intravenous toxic chemicals to create pain or illness, limbs pulled, application of snakes, spiders, maggots, rats to induce fear and disgust, near-death experience by asphyxiation, forced to perform witness abuse, torture, and sacrifice people and animals, usually with knives, forced participation in slavery, abuse to become pregnant, then the fetus is aborted for ritual use, or the baby is taken for sacrifice or enslavement, spiritual abuse to cause the victim to feel possessed, harassed, controlled internally, desecration of Judeo-Christian beliefs, form of worship, dedication to Satan or other deities, abuse and illusion to convince victim that God is evil, such as convincing a child that God has abused her, surgery to torture, experiment or cause the perception of physical, spiritual bombs, implants, harms or threats of harm to family, friends, loved ones, pets, or other to force compliance, use of illusion and virtual reality to confuse and create non-credible disclosure. The basis for the success of Monarch Mind Control Program is that different personalities or personality parts called alters can be created who do not know each other, but who can take the body at different times. The amnesia walls that are built by traumas form a protective shield of secrecy that protects the abusers from being found out and prevents the front personalities who hold the body much of the time to know how their system of alters is being used. The shield of secrecy allows cult members to live and work around other people and remain totally undetected. The front altars can be wonderful Christians, and deeper altars can be the worst type of satanic imaginable, a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde effect. A great deal is at stake in maintaining the secrecy of the intelligent agency or cult group which is controlling the slave. The success rate of this type of program is high, but when it fails, the failures are discarded through death. Each trauma and torture serves a purpose. A great deal of experimentation and research went into finding out what can and can't be done. Charts were made showing how much torture a given body weight at a given age can handle without death. Due to severe trauma-induced, etc., abuse to other methods, mind splits off into alternate personalities from the core, formerly referred to as multiple personality disorder, is present and recognized as dissociative identity disorder, and is the basis for Monarch programming. Further conditioning of the victim's mind is enhanced through hypnotism, double-bind coercion, pleasure, pain reversals, food, water, sleep, sensory deprivation, along with various drugs which alter certain cerebral functions. This association is thus achieved by traumatizing the subject using systematic abuse and using terrifying occult rituals. Once a split in the core personality occurs, an internal world can be created and altered personas can be programmed using tools such as music, especially Disney productions and fairy tales. These visual and audio aids enhance the programming process and using images, symbols, meanings, concepts. Created alters can then be accessed using trigger words or symbol programmed into the subject psyche by the handler. Some of the most common internal images seen by the mind-controlled slaves are trees, the Kabbalistic trail of life, infinity loops, ancient symbols and letters, spiderwebs, mirrors, glass shattering, masks, castles, mazes, and demons. These symbols are commonly inserted in popular culture movies and videos for two reasons: to desensitize the majority of the population using subliminal and neuralistic programming, and to deliberately construct specific triggers and keys for base programming of highly impressionable Monarch children. Some of the movies in Monarch programming include The Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, Pinocchio, and Sleeping Beauty. The movie The Wizard of Oz is used by Monarch handlers to program their slaves. Symbols and meanings in the movies become triggers in the slave's mind, enable easy access to the slave's mind by their handler. In popular culture, veiled references to the Monarch program and often uses analogies, The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland. In each case, the slave is given an interpretation of the movie storyline in order to enhance programming. For example, a slave watching The Wizard of Oz is taught that somewhere over the rainbow is the happy place. Dissociative trauma slaves must go into order to escape the unbearable pain being inflicted upon them. Using the movie, programmers encourage slaves to go over the rainbow and dissociate, effectively separating their minds from their bodies. As mentioned before, the hypnotist will find children easier to hypnotize if they know how to do it with small children. One method is that it is effective to say to small children, imagine you're watching a favorite television show. This is why Disney movies and other shows are so important to the programmers. They're a perfect hypnotic tool to get the child's mind to dissociate in the right direction. The programmers have been using movies since almost day one to help children learn hypnotic scripts. For children, they need to be a part of the hypnotic process. If the hypnotist allows the child to make up his own imagery, the hypnotic suggestions will be stronger. Rather than telling the child the color of a dog, the programmer can ask the child, this is where the books and films shown the child assist in steering his mind in the right direction. If the hypnotist talks to the child, he must take extra precaution not to change the tone of his voice and to have smooth transitions. Most of the Disney films are used for programming purpose. Some are specifically designed for mind control. Levels of Monarch programming. The levels of Monarch programming identify the slave's functions and are named after the EEG brainwaves associated with them. Regarded as general or regular programming, alphas within the basic control personality. It's characterized by extremely pronounced memory retention along with substantially increased physical strength and visual activity. Alpha programming is accomplished through deliberately subdividing the victim's personality, which in essence causes the left brain right brain division, allowing for a programmed union of left and right. Beta is referred to this, and this is what they had requested me to talk about, the sex kitten program. And there's nothing much on it. I will go in deep detail on it in a different video, but I got a little bit on it. Beta is referred to as sexual programming. The program eliminates all learned moral convictions and stimulates the primitive instincts, devoid of inhibitions. Cat alters may come out at this level, known as kitten programming. It's the most visible kind of programming, as some female celebrities, models, actors, and singers have been subjected to this kind of program. In popular culture, clothing with feline prints often denote kitten programming. Delta is known as killer programming and was originally developed as training agents or elite soldiers. Delta Force, 1st Earth Battalion, Mossad, and covert operations. Optimal adrenal output and controlled aggression is very evident. Subjects are devoid of fear and very systematic in carrying out their aggression. Their assignments, self-destructive suicide instructions, are there layered. Theta, Theta, considered the psychic programming. Those coming from multi-generative satanic families were determined to exhibit a greater propensity for having telepathic abilities than did non-bloodliners. Due to its evident limitations, however, various forms of electronic mind control systems were developed and introduced, namely biomedical human telemetry devices and direct energy lasers using microwaves or electromagnetics. It's reported that these are used in conjunction with highly advanced computers and sophisticated satellite tracking systems. In conclusion, it is difficult to remain objective when describing the horrors endured by Monarch slaves. The extreme violence, the abuse, the mental torture, sadistic games inflicted on victims by notable science and high-level officials prove the existence of a true dark side in the powers that be. Despite the revelations, the documents, and whistleblowers, a great majority of the population ignores, dismisses, or avoids the issue altogether. Over 2 million Americans have been programmed by trauma and mind control since 1947, and the CIA publicly admitted its mind control projects in 1970. Movies such as The Manchurian Candidate have directly referred to the subject, even depicting actual techniques such as electroshock, use of trigger words, and microchip implantations. Several public figures were seen on our TV and movie screens and are mind control slaves. Famous people such as Candy Jones, Celia Emery, and Saran Aran have gone on record and disclosed their mind control experiences, and yet the general public claims that it cannot exist. The research and funds invested in this Project Monarch do not, however, only apply to mind control slavery. Many of these program techniques perfected in these experiments are applied on a mass scale through mass media, mainstream news, movies, music videos, advertisement, and television shows are conceived using the most advanced data on human behavior ever compiled. A lot of this comes from Monarch programming. So there you go. I found another document on the sex kitten program. I was thinking that went a little bit deeper. So if that's not enough for you and you would like to know more, just leave it in the comments that you would, and I will research it. I plan on doing a video tomorrow, and I hope everybody's day is going well. God bless.